What the fuck? When we get a video on the Debate Lord lore, say less, but we gotta do this right. Please, take a seat. You know, this doesn't feel right for Debate Lords, actually. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this feels more appropriate, so let's begin. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, what the hell is happening in this video? Well, thanks to the insane donation from KTS, today we're going to be going over the tumultuous history of Jujutsu Kaisen Debate Lords, the channel from our Discord, where only the hottest JJK takes are permitted. So let's get into this. So first of all, this is something I could not have done on my own, so I want to give a massive shout out to Crimson, who is one of my moderators and became official lore keeper for this endeavor. He compiled all of the Debate Lords lore into what is now known as the Ancient Holy Text, and so I'm going to be working from that information in order to make this video. So Crimson, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of you helped Crimson put this together, so thank you guys as well. And then Dr. Dunn, Crimson specifically named here as a huge help with this. So Dunn, I appreciate you, man. And y'all be sure to give them thanks if you see them over in the Discord. So first things first here, we're going to basically block this out into three separate eras of the Debate Lords history. As you can see here, the first one, which dates from February 24th, which is around when the Discord originated, I made it sometime in February, through May 7th, is referred to as the Haon era of the Discord. It was a lot of chaos during that time. But then May 7th to June 9th has been come to known as the Edo period, and finally from June 9th still to today, we have the Meiji period. So we're going to get into all three of these eras. So first, let's talk about the channel's inception. And if you guys don't know by now, I don't know what I'm doing with this whole content creation thing, nor do I know how to run a Discord. I'm still figuring it out. But back in February, I had no idea what I was doing. It was literally the Wild West in there for the first couple of days. But what happened is, during one of the first leaks nights for JJK, where things go absolutely crazy, we had this legendary suggestion from Dumpy, who said, you know what, you should add a debate channel, because then we can take some of these conversations and move them there instead of it just being absolutely chaos in the leaks chat. So as you can see here, the rest is history, and that was the inception of the JJK Debate Lords channel. Shout out to Dumpy. Okay, so the first major defining moment of the Haon era of Debate Lords has to be the Yuta versus Kashimo debate. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you've already seen all the videos I've made answering questions about this, taking a stance on who I think would win, and a lot of that came directly from Debate Lords itself. And this really kind of boils down to two separate people that were really staunch believers in one or the other side of this debate. We have Dr. Dunn, who I just mentioned, was Team Yuta, and then we had Gojo, who was Team Kashimo. Now, this got to such a point where both of those people changed their names, Dunn to Yuta low diffs Kashimo, and Gojo to Kashimo low diffs Yuta, and this was basically a recurring argument that happened all of the time in Debate Lords. And it started with most people thinking that Yuta would defeat Kashimo, but Gojo put up such a defense and argued this all the time that he actually swayed a lot of people to where I think the majority of them swapped to believe that Kashimo would win. Now, I myself put out a video on this, and I was Team Yuta. Now, I don't think it's low diffs in either situation. I think it's pretty even, honestly, and both could win against the other, but I did lean Yuta. So this was a long era of the server, and again, I think Gojo did convert most people. So Debate Lords as the whole definitely felt more Team Kashimo. With the Yuta-Kashimo debate having mostly settled, this gave room for new debates to take center stage, and this was mostly Gojo versus Haon era Sukuna, aka Sukuna without Maharaga and without the world-cutting slash. And during this era of the channel, we had some new names pop up, primarily Regeneration, MC Charles, Demaxian, and the aforementioned Dumpy. Now, we also had somebody else that I'm just going to refer to as CC because that person has now been banned, and I'm not going to mention any banned people in this video, but for those of you that know, you know, and for those of you that want the unredacted version of this, there will be the lore document posted in the Discord after this, so you'll be able to read it in its entirety with the banned people's names if you like. Also, during this era, there were obviously people on Team Gojo and Team Sukuna, but for the most part, the general consensus seemed to give the edge to Gojo under these circumstances. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is roleism. And for those of you that are familiar with Discord, you'll probably know what I'm talking about, but there is a leveling system within the Discord, and the higher level you get, your color starts to change. So, people with the higher color roles, will discriminate against the lower color roles. It is what it is. We try to put an end to it, but it was definitely happening, especially in the early days. So the culture of debate lords was the people who had been there longer, had the higher roles, were the veterans, would often team up on new people that came in to debate if they disagreed with them. So basically bullying. And, again, it was kind of the Wild West in debate lords at first. So during this time, we had some of these newer people come around, and specifically a guy named Smitty came around, and basically the veterans of debate lords disagreed with all of Smitty's takes and would gang up on him. This ultimately led Smitty to just leave the server, which, unfortunate. Shout out Smitty if you're out there. Then, basically, this role of the person people picked on in Debate Lords was filled by Rahul. And it's not as if they just bullied random people. Rahul and Smitty had takes that were wildly unpopular in Debate Lords. So, it's not as if, these people are evil or anything, don't get me wrong. But, we'd have the veteran debate lords gang up on these newer members that had what they thought were terrible takes. And we had Rahul leave the server as well. So this basically led to an era of a bit more moderation in the debate lords channel and cracking down on roleism. Our next pit stop in the Haon era is the arrival of the power scalers. See, we have another channel in the Discord strictly for power scaling, and two members from that channel hopped on over and joined the debate lords. They were Crimson and Jan. Crimson needs no introduction. He's the moderator that helped make this that I mentioned earlier, and Jan is now a prominent debate lord who primarily focused on his Sukuna takes, and in fact swayed a lot of people over to Team Sukuna in the Sukuna Gojo debate that I mentioned earlier. Now, Jan would go on to create a Minecraft server for the Debate Lords, which a number of members joined and all played in together. This would only serve to strengthen the bond and community that was in Debate Lords, at least amongst the veteran members. And during this time, we had even more people pop up, some of which were Dory, Leo, Gilly, Ebu, and Chase. Also, we had Cricket become kind of infamous for using physics textbooks in his debates. However, this wasn't all good news because as the bond strengthened between the veteran debate lord members, we kind of ran into some more roleism. If you'll recall, Rahul, who originally left the server due to being bullied for their takes, he actually came back, along with another member named Dagon, and the two of them were again relentlessly kind of bullied for their takes in JJK Debate Lords. And I'm not commenting on whether their debates were good or bad, but you have a large group of the members of this community basically pushing out the smaller, newer members, and that's just not a good culture to have. So it's around this point that Crimson, who was a moderator now, tried to kind of shift the culture away from toxic and more towards accepting and hearing each other out when it came to debate lords. Now, this type of culture shift doesn't take place overnight, and before things got better, they got worse. As the moderator team tried to kind of reform debate lords and the toxicity there was a big event where actually two members of debate lords got banned. Demaxian, who I mentioned earlier, but would later be unbanned, and somebody we'll just call L. They were basically being toxic and, basically things that we weren't accepting in the server. So they did get banned, and this caused a massive uproar in debate lords. Of course, they wanted to fight for their own, and they were very upset that two of their own had been sniped in that way. But like we said, we were moving away from the toxic culture that already existed there, and you know what? It was on me and the mod team for letting that fester to begin with. But for a while, there was a large falling out with a lot of people upset. But like I said, Demaxian was welcomed back into the fold. L unfortunately was not. Now, this would conclude the Haon era and lead us into the Edo period, or a time of peaceful reform, where thanks to the moderator team and the cooperation of the Debate Lords chatters, we reached a new peace. However, all good things must come to an end. So this new era of modesty and reformation in Debate Lords was actually going rather well That is until we had two new members join that we're just going to call D and G. And these members were reminiscent of Smitty and Rahul in that they came in with takes that just the vast majority of the rest of Debate Lords disagreed with. Now, like I mentioned, there had been reform, so there wasn't just relentless bullying, but definitely everyone was against these two. And notably, G always seemed to support D no matter what, to the extent where the popular belief became that they were actually the same person, just on two different accounts, constantly posting outrageous takes in order to elicit a response out of everyone else. Now, do we know that they were purely doing this to rage bait and to troll? No, we don't, but that was a lot of people's main assumption. Now, it's important to mention that D&G's antics weren't just contained to the Debate Lords channel. They also tried to participate in the custom curse technique tournament, but were such a nuisance there that one of my moderators running that had to mute them on more than one occasion. So this wasn't just a self-contained issue amongst the Debate Lords. These two were causing a headache for a lot of people around the server. Now, after D&G's respective mutes fell off, they returned to the Debate Lords and kept up with their normal antics. But by this point, most people had really reached their limit, and Gil in particular laid into the both of them, basically just letting them know how everyone was tired of what they were doing. Also, this art and the rest of the sketches I'm going to show are all done by our very own talented Obru from the Discord, so shout out to him. Now, after this, D's behavior only escalated, and he continued to insult people and cause problems and got several warnings until ultimately we had a final confrontation between him and Region, one of my moderators, and Region had had enough. At which point he now sent this iconic message officially banning D from the server. It's at this point that G hopped into the battlefield trying to avenge his fallen comrade and started causing problems of his own, picking fights with the moderators, at which point Crimson stepped in and banished him to the Shadow Realm as well. This moment marked the end of the Edo period, and as Crimson puts it in the ancient texts, he says the Debate Lord community and the server as a whole rejoiced in glee over the tyranny of D and G finally coming to an end. And at this point, Debate Lords returned to normalcy, and the debaters would start a campaign to, fix their image across the rest of the server, and this was mostly spearheaded by Chase. And this new Meiji era lasts until today. And yes, it's only been a few weeks, but so far so good. And thus concludes the history of Debate Lords. At least so far. Be sure to join the Discord and you can get in on the next chapter. Who knows what's going to unfold. And honestly, this is just one facet of the insane lore of the Discord server as a whole. Maybe one day we'll put something together for everything, if that's even possible. But if you made it this far in the video, I know you're a real one. I know you're hardcore because we've been talking about Discord lore for like 15 minutes straight. So thank you guys so much. And of course, another massive thank you and shout out to KTS for sponsoring this insane video. You're a legend, man. And of course, again, shout out to Crimson for helping to put this entire lore document together. And if you want to read the whole thing, which there's a lot I kind of left out in terms of like specific debates and evidence that were given, and of course the redacted band names, then you will be able to find that in the Discord. So check it out. Crimson did a great job. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching.